Yo, have you heard of LinkedIn Learning? If you haven't, LinkedIn Learning is an American massive open online course provider. It provides video courses taught by industry experts in a variety of subjects. Now, why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because Living Corporate is in partnership with LinkedIn Learning to provide diversity, equity, and inclusion courses. Listen, if you're trying to be a better ally, you want to understand better diversity, equity, inclusion strategies, or you just want to learn how to be a better leader, you got to check out the courses on LinkedIn Learning. So check it out. You can do it one of two ways. You can click the link in the show notes, or you go to LinkedIn Learning and you search Living Corporate. Again, link in the show notes, or go to LinkedIn Learning and search Living Corporate. I'll see you over there.
Welcome to the Access Point, kicking off a new season with a new group of panelists. And today we are going to be talking about navigating the pivot. But before we start, let me tell you a little bit about everything that's going on today. Let me talk about Living Corporate. Living Corporate is a digital media network consultancy focused on workplace equity and inclusion. Living Corporate centers and amplifies Black and Brown voices in the workplace through digital media production and business-to-business consulting. The network offers a variety of programming, and tonight we are excited that you have joined us for this latest installment of the Access Point Thursday night. Now, let me tell you a little about the Access Point if you are new to us. The Access Point is a weekly webinar focused on preparing Black and Brown college students and early career professionals for the workforce by having the real, nuanced talks that they do not know that they need. For this Thursday night iteration of the show, we will focus more closely on real challenges that you, our viewers, are facing as you move through the early stages of your career. So we welcome your stories, your experiences, and questions, and look forward to equipping you with strategies to mitigate these challenges. Now, I have to give a disclaimer. The thoughts and views expressed in tonight's discussion do not reflect the views of any organization that the host may be affiliated with. So we've gotten that out of the way. So let's kick it off by introducing our host today. So I'm going to start with Dr. Wendy Edmonds. Would you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Wendy M. Edmonds. I'm a professor at Bowie State University. It is the oldest historically Black college and university in the state of Maryland. I'm also an author, consultant, and entrepreneur. So what is it that I do? Well, your job is your treasure, and I help you separate the gems from the counterfeit.
Wonderful, and thank you, Dr. Wendy Edmonds. Next, we have Dr. Lonnie Morris.
Hi.
Please tell us who you are and what you do.
Great. Well, I'm Lonnie Morris. I am, like Dr. Edmonds, a management consultant and professor, and I spend most of my time helping people navigate changes in their career at really pivotal times, and they need to understand how to digest and dissect what's happening in their organization. Two things are really important to me in this process. One is making the workplace a much better place and help you hate your job less.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lonnie Morris. It's going to be great hearing your voice today. And last but not least, let me tell you who I am, because I've been doing a lot of talking. You've probably been wondering, who is this person? My name is Deborah Hunter Johnson. I'm an attorney, HR professional. I spent the bulk of my career in corporate America and have spent a significant amount of time consulting with startups, businesses from growth all the way to legacy. What I do is help you accelerate your wisdom curve. I tell you what you need to know so that you can achieve your goals faster. I work with organizations to help them achieve their goals faster and to build and grow great cultures. And I help people transition from being subject matter experts to leaders and trusted advisors. So it's safe to say you have a wealth of knowledge on this panel today. And what we're going to do is jump right in. I'm going to turn things over to Lonnie so he can help us dig right into today's topic.
So thank you very much. We have a letter from a listener, and I'll read it to you, and then we'll talk about what's happening here. It says, hello. Over the past year, my interests at work have taken me outside of the main tasks and responsibilities for my current accounting role. I've been on this accounting path for about 8 years. I'm good at the accounting role, but it doesn't excite me as much as project management has now. I'm struggling with the best way to do this. Should I explore roles externally for a fresh start, or should I try to find a tour rotation in my current organization, considering I've been here for 8 years already? I feel like I also may need to get additional certification, either PMP or go to grad school to show some credentials so I can be taken seriously. I have a few mentors and coaches at my current employer who are supporting me while I navigate through this, what could be a good fit at this company as I carefully weigh the options. But it also feels like their patience is growing thin. Maybe I'm taking too long to make a decision. I appreciate their support, and I want to be as careful as possible as I make this change in my career. I'm feeling torn. I appreciate their help and probably need it, particularly their political capital and maybe a recommendation, but I also want to make the right decision and land in the right role. Please help me. Signed, Stuck in Limbo.
All right. Well, thank you. That is quite an interesting dynamic. I think many people have found themselves in this situation. So we want to help this person. So I think the first thing that would be helpful to do is to identify some of the themes and issues that we see here, because this situation is applicable to anyone. It doesn't matter whether they're a project manager or an accountant. And so what we need to do is figure out first, what organizational behaviors, what leadership issues, legal issues do we see here? So Lonnie, what comes to mind when you hear from this listener?
The first thing that stands out to me is this idea of the mentor's patience growing thin. And that seems odd because I think of a mentor-mentee relationship that should be something that feels more supportive. It shouldn't feel like pressure. It should be encouraging, helping remove barriers, connecting you with resources, leveraging capital, social and political capital. What it makes me think is, what's the organizational culture here? Is this an issue of it's a fast-paced environment where the expectation is you should move, you should go, you got to get to the next level, you got to do something quickly. And so personal deliberation might be in conflict with that, right? What you think about what you want to do next is what they value there. It also makes me think maybe there's an issue with behavior modeling from a leadership perspective. So what is it that the mentor is showing and displaying to the mentee? Is this more of, I want you to emulate me, or I want you to learn from me?
Interesting. Very interesting. The mentor-mentee relationship is a complicated one, I must say. Dr. Wendy, did we lose you? Are you still here? All right. I think she's going to probably hop back on. I see her coming on. Oh, I see. Maybe, Wendy, if your volume is not working, then maybe you can participate. Okay. She needs to get invited back in from the host. So while we're working on that, I will give my thoughts on the themes that I see here. I agree with Lonnie in terms of the mentor relationship, but from a different point of view, because Lonnie, you've probably never been a mentee of mine. Because I do believe that the role of a mentor is to challenge a person, to help them elevate, to help them stretch. And hopefully in the mentor-mentee relationship, the mentor has built enough trust so that they can challenge the person, so that they feel safe while it happens. And that's the issue. If a mentee doesn't feel safe, they do need to unpack that relationship a little bit more and have some crucial conversations to figure out what's going on. But a good mentor does help a mentee stretch, which means you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to feel off balance. And that makes sense. Another theme that I see is the theme of reflection points. And I don't look at this as much, yay, Hey, Wendy, you're back. I was just
Welcome
going
back.
through some of the themes that I see. I touched a little bit on the mentor-mentee relationship, but from a different perspective, because I try to challenge my mentees and stretch them a little bit, make them a little bit uncomfortable, because I do believe if you're too comfortable, you might be playing it a little bit too safe. But the other theme that I saw was related to reflection points. And I think periodically in your career, there are points of reflection. And this is that point in time for our listener who is stuck. And this is a natural thing. I sensed a bit of stress in the information that was shared with us. And perhaps that's what we need to focus on, is the stress caused by this reflection point. And then lastly, I see issues related to being self-aware and also charting your own career. So, Wendy, I'd like to turn things over to you and hear some of the themes that you see in
Yes,
this.
thank you. Okay, what I thought about was organizational preparedness. Looking at how the organization would view someone who is wanting to leave, right? So when someone is thinking about leaving and they've been there for 8 years, not only are they leaving, but they're taking intellectual capacity out the door. And so when an employee has contributed 8 years, the thought is that for that amount of time, at least they have created some sort of value. So one thing that the pandemic showed us is that we can work from anywhere, but that also presented an opportunity for employees to reevaluate their happiness, their worth, explore some of their interests. And so what we find is that the writer lets us know that they're in this place of being torn. But unlike pre-COVID, companies now realize the benefits of having organizational preparedness for dealing with these kinds of things that are going on. So I would recommend.
So what you're thinking, Wendy, is that the organization might be more open.
They might be more open because
helping.
now they're experiencing this more since the pandemic. It's happening more frequently, and they have to think about how do we retain our employees. That goes back to talent development.
That's right. So there's a retention issue here. There's an issue of retention here. I agree with you.
So, looking to see what types of resources they really have to invest in retention.
Right.
And
so I'm sorry, go ahead, Lonnie.
No, please, you first.
I was just going to recap a little bit for us, because we're looking at through this different lenses. We're looking at it through the lens of the listener who is stuck and sent this to us. But then, Wendy, you started looking at it through the lens of an organization, meaning HR professionals, meaning leaders, managers who have teams that they want to retain. So let's move to mitigation strategies, which I think, Wendy, you're going to lead us through so that we can start talking about what are some of the strategies that should be employed for this situation.
Lonnie, did you want to chime in before we get started on that?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yes, you do.
We're flying up here on the moon. You just keep going.
So one of the things I would say is consider some of those indicators for organizational maturity. How much of an investment have they made in talent development? Is it really valuable for the writer to stay and move around because they do make this investment? Do they pay attention to the performance appraisals? Is that their strategy, an initiative also towards succession planning? So how are they looking at this? So in really weighing it out, I would say think on both sides and weigh it out. If you're going to think about leaving, you want to make use of your networks, even outside of the mentors in the organization, because mentors could be at different levels, right? And they may have different abilities. but memberships into associations, join different types of networks. You may want to rebrand yourself by using social media so that people will see you. And how do you do that? You can do that also by writing blogs and articles that we see all the time. And then I think the one thing that stood out was, do I get this PMP because this is my interest now, or do I get my master's degree? And so just really taking some time to do research to see where your value is with your 8 years of experience and moving with that certification or spending the 2 years, and then who's going to pay for that?
Lonnie, what do you have to say?
I think there are a couple of things. Since we started out with mentoring, and I love what you said, Deborah, that mentoring is also about challenging. So I'd say if you're feeling this pressure, then talk to your mentor, right? That relationship should allow you to have open and honest conversations about what's happening and ask additional questions. And it's possible to identify other mentors. So if maybe you're feeling some pressure from one and that's making you uncomfortable, which granted, that discomfort can help you grow. Maybe you need someone that's in another organization to help you mentor. That might be in the other area you're looking to move into. So you create this community, this tribe that supports you in terms of what's going on, and that you don't feel like you're on this island with people pressuring you to make decisions, but it is more of a supportive, let's help you along the way. The other thing, and you mentioned this a little bit already, Wendy, is about a values assessment, right? So what are you, as you're evolving and growing in this career, what's important to you? And how does it align with the organization where you are when you do? The one thing I like about this is there's an onus on the listener to say, you probably need a self-temperature check here. Sometimes when we are feeling like, I'm not sure what to do, should I take this road and this in the fork, right, on this side of the road, then maybe we create these narratives about things that aren't really happening to us. So how you're experiencing it might be because of your nervousness to pivot, but the pressure may just be this encouragement that feels overwhelming because you're not sure what to do. And it's okay to not be sure what to do, right? So make sure that your deliberation is okay and that that's a part of the values, not necessarily just the value statement that your organization has, but what you see in action and what's reinforced.
I agree. They're all good points. You know, from my perspective, the first thing that I'm going to focus on the listener because I want to make sure that we are responsive to the listener's plea for help. And the first thing I would say is we often spend so much time, particularly in the first 10 years of our career, being stressed out about everything. And then you look in hindsight and you realize all that stress, all that angst, it didn't really get me anywhere. Worrying never gets you anywhere. What gets you somewhere is kind of peeling the onion, figuring out the source of the stress. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the stressor is not what you think it is. You know, I think one thing that we learn is we have triggers. Yeah. And often if you have a boss that reminds you of somebody that you didn't like, you had negative experiences with, you bring that stress of the past situation along with you. If you have insecurities within yourself, yes, people can trigger
I promise you them. I didn't write this.
people can trigger them. So we always have to have strategies to de-stress ourselves. You know, I have found the Calm app. I use that regularly now to be a way to meditate regularly and to hear positive, uplifting voices. And I would tell you now, no matter what stage in your career you are in, you will have stress. You will have change. You will have adversity. You may have 5 minutes of peace and calm, but all that is God allowing you to be fortified for the next challenge and for the next bit of adversity. And so developing resilience is really a very critical attribute. Have you all found that to be the case in your experience? To having that resilience.
Oh, absolutely.
That makes a difference. Absolutely makes a difference.
And it comes from experiences like this, right? When you've had to second guess and feeling
Yes.
comfortable to get to a space where you are now comfortable.
That's right. So you hear people talking a lot more about resilience now, but I didn't have people talking about that when I started my career. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that that awareness is there, because you don't ever get on easy street. You know, you've heard that term, easy street. I have not found easy street yet.
It's not up here on the moon, I promise you. It's not here.
Exactly. It is not. You know, I may have be on, Lover's Lane for a minute where I relax and, have Zen, but, the adversity is just up the road. So what I have
I got to get this Calm app. That sounds amazing.
Yes, Calm app is great. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will tell you, social media is a gift. I see somebody wrote in the chat in this very digital era, the point on using social media to rebrand yourself is a powerful point. That is true. However, I think we all have seen the dark side of social media, because if you are feeling badly about yourself on any day, if you are feeling low, it's probably best not to go on social media, because your friends are going to be on there humble bragging. I am so honored and humbled to be recognized by the society for this, that, and the other, or hashtag blessed. All of my children got a 4.0 this year.
And that's not your story?
That is not your story. It can make you really feel as you're sitting there eating your barbecue potato chips, the king size, family size bag by yourself. It can make you feel pretty badly about it.
And to that point, that could be the source of where this disconnect is here, right? It's constantly comparing yourself to where other people are in their career and what they're doing, rather than staying on your path, trying to merge your life with their paths.
That's right.
So now this, what was a great relationship with a mentor, now feels like pressure because you're not where the other person is.
Right. Or you see somebody 3 years younger than you now doing something that you feel is above and beyond what you have exceeded. It may make you have feelings. And so being a part of social media requires another set of skills to manage the comparison. And that, as they say, comparison is the thief of joy. And you really have to, if you're a competitive person, and most successful people are, most high achieving people are competitive. They may not admit it, but Lonnie, I can see it in your eye. Wendy, you try not to smile and nod. I see it in you too.
Who said comparison is a thief of joy? I want to meet that person. I love that.
It's there. That
Next
thief
we're
of
gonna have
joy
a
I
t-shirt
try
that
to
says
beat down.
That's right.
Thief of joy.
That's right. Well, comparison when you feel you're not winning is the thief of joy. Okay? When you're on top, it might feel pretty good, but otherwise it doesn't. So you really have to have a way to manage the stress, manage social media, use it to your benefit, but you also have to recognize that it can cause triggers in you to come out based on your insecurities. And the other thing, I say to a lot of the folks in early stage career that I coach is you don't know what opportunities are going to be presented to you. I can remember when I was in college, way back in time, the field of technology was burgeoning. It was new. And so someone couldn't say, I want that job and point to it with certainty because that job didn't exist. And so we're in a world today where you have the whole field of environmental sustainability. You have artificial intelligence. You have cryptocurrency. You have all of these burgeoning industries, and nobody knows what those job descriptions are going to look like. So I always tell people, focus on acquiring skills, mastering things, because once you have those skills in your wheelhouse, nobody can take them away from you. When you leave a job, they don't say, all right, put all those skills you learned in this box. We're going to keep them here. You get to take them with you. So what you want to do is have the skills to be prepared for whatever opportunities are going to come your way. And when you do that, that is truly a stress reliever, and it prepares you. You don't have to necessarily know what you want to do when you grow up. We know
when you say that those skills kind of make you more valuable.
More
So,
valuable.
yeah.
Yes.
Whether you
absolutely.
stay or not is a choice, but you are more marketable. The more
Absolutely.
skills and
Yes.
education you get, the more marketable
Absolutely.
you are.
That's right. Absolutely. So that's the thing to remember. If you feel like you're in a rut in your job, do volunteer work. I learned a lot of skills volunteering at
Yes.
nonprofits and getting involved in the community, because that is where you see a lot of collaboration
Mhm.
happening, a lot of partnering.
Mhm.
It's not about money. It's more about mission and navigating that where people's, uh, goals may not be aligned is very complex, and you really learn a lot. So you don't have to rely on your job to increase your skills. You can volunteer at your church, be in a leadership role in your church, and learn more about politics than you will in most corporations, right?
Amen.
That's right. All right. So the other thing that I like to talk about with young people, and I'd love to hear, since you both are educators, how you feel about this. I try to, explain to people you really can chart out your career maybe in 3 to 5 year chunks, because things change so much. If you try to chart out what job you want to be in 25 years, it's very difficult to do because the world changes. So what I tell people is think about a 3 to 5 year plan and think about the skills and attributes you need to acquire in that window to get to your next journey. I think the long range planning comes in is figuring out, what are your values? What do you want your lifestyle to be? How do you want to feel 20 years from now about your life? That's generally what I tell young people to focus on. I'd be curious to hear what you do.
Wendy?
Well, for me, I even think about myself. I didn't just stay in one career. Mine is all over the place. So if you ask me what I've done so much. But what I would recommend, or, when I'm talking to young people, it's just that, look, here's one thing that I want you all to be sure is that every opportunity that you have, there are things that are free that you can take advantage of. So there are courses from universities online. You don't even have to leave your home, that you can get full access to for training, for professional development, for your self-development. And always continue to do that, because I always think about what happens in any event, whether you want to leave a company because you want to leave or you're forced to leave. Mergers take place, anything can happen. And the pandemic, we saw some organizations didn't even survive. Where do you go next? You have a lot to write about on your resume. So that's really how I think, is just take advantage of the free. Take advantage of the cell phone that you can just connect to. And we don't have to just think about here, right? We could think globally. We don't have to just think about our opportunities here, because we are now in a work from anywhere situation.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Lonnie, what about you?
So I think about the title of this episode, Navigating the Pivot, and that pivoting is okay, and that you've got to get comfortable with that, and that it can look different for you than it looks for your friends, than it looked for your parents, than it looked for your classmates. And how you move in the space is about creating a path that makes sense for you. The other thing is that you also have always an opportunity to propose what you want that to look like, right? They don't have to accept it, but sometimes ideas don't always have to come from top down. How you're thinking about your career may be something that the organization thinks, wow, we could do that for other people. And that voice wasn't at the table. And so if you see a new path, you could chart a new avenue for other people to benefit from that same experience. So don't be afraid to step out, step to the side, step around, right? As you continue to shape what this looks like, particularly as you mentioned, Deborah, in 3 to 5 years, because that was definitely my case. until I became a professor, I had never been at a job more than 4 years. I was like, all right, I came here. I know what I wanted to accomplish. Start moving. And it's almost like what our listener said. I'm starting to feel like this other thing is more interesting to me than what I've been doing. And that always happened for me right around the 4-year mark. Like, okay, been here, done that. This was great. What do I want to conquer? What skill do I want to develop next? Right? Where do I want to be competent next? What's that thing I want to add to my list of competencies that I want people to endorse? That's what.
I think those are all good points. And when I think about the listener's story, the one bit of caution I also want to give the person is sometimes when you've been doing something for a while, maybe your accounting role, and you get exposed to something new, project management, it feels fresh and exciting.
Shiny new thing in the window.
The shiny new thing in the window. And you have to be careful before you jump, with both feet into that to dissect, what do I like about this? Perhaps it's that specific team you're working with. Yeah. And if you weren't working with that team, then the project management might not feel as exciting. Yeah. So you always want to kind of, again, have that self-awareness. What about this is interesting to me? And is this something that I can do in a sustained way? And have I talked to other project managers? Am I the type of person that in another 8 years, I'm going to need something else shiny and new? And will project management allow me to amplify? Or will I be just on a static course that doesn't have upward mobility for me? So it's always good to do research, I think, as you're thinking about jumping into something new so that you understand where the opportunities are and where the risks are.
And I would also say to think about using your entrepreneurial mindset. Yeah. So you have 8 years under your belt. So which is a fair amount of time.
Yeah. Because you're an expert now.
You're an expert at that point. You have spent that time developing your skill. Yeah. And so change, okay. But how do you commercialize your intellectual capacity? How do you take that and pay yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So expand what you have.
Because Lonnie sips tea.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
That's a very good point you raised, because I think a lot of, studies are showing that you're not getting the same return on investment from those second degrees in every industry as you did maybe 20, 25 years ago. Because remember, getting your MBA could just double your salary. 25 years ago, it's very different now. So you have to look at whether the economic cost of paying for a graduate degree, whether a project management career is going to give you that upside. So it's worth paying the cost of grad school, which on average is, $50,000 a year. So that's something else you have to think about.
There's no grad schools up here on the moon.
Oh, that's right. So.
All right. So I think this has been a healthy conversation for us. I hope that our listener, you got some morsels out of this that help you think through your current situation and pivot if necessary, or in the way that's necessary that supports how you move forward in a healthy way, that keeps you happy and on a great path in your career, and that keeps people around you, that create a healthy space. We want to celebrate you and all of you for joining us and listening. And as you're thinking about your career, we want you to consider the Access Point as part of your tribe. We are here looking to support your growth and your success in whatever way that we can do that. And so we like to toast to you for all of your hard work and for your bravery, particularly for our sharer. And that we want to toast to hydration.
What are you toasting with? Oh,
this is water.
All right, H2.
Special moon water. It's the special
H2O. Is it pH balanced? Is it fancy water? Or is it just tap
That's moon water?
It is moon water.
All
So
right. Yeah.
we are toasting.
So I
to-
say we toast, and because we have a little bit more time, let's give some parting tips, because I want to make sure, because we covered such a landscape. Let's make sure we kind of call out some of the tips we gave. One of them is, don't stress about it. Take a deep breath and exhale, because pivoting, those reflection points are natural. What was something else that we said, Wendy?
Think about the entrepreneur, using your entrepreneurial mindset
Yes.
in your thinking of transitioning out. That pivot
Absolutely.
could be money in your pocket.
That's right. Lonnie, you talked about mentors. What was your upshot on mentors?
Have healthy conversations with your mentors and do a temperature check. Are you misinterpreting how they are supporting you because of your nervousness about where you are?
Absolutely. And then we talked about continuous education. Always elevate your skills, because I believe the early years about building technical competency. But then as you start getting into your mid-range career, which is like 8 to 15 years, you really have to start learning those soft skills, right? Because that's what leaders have to know. If you want to lead, you can't just be technical. You have to start thinking about how you communicate. How do you communicate with your mentor if you feel that the way that you're interacting makes you uncomfortable? How do you negotiate those boundaries? Those types of soft skills are what you really have to start putting into your wheelhouse along with your technical skills. And sometimes when you're bored technically, that's the clue. I need to start thinking about other competencies that I need to acquire to make sure that I'm ready for the next level opportunity. What else do we want to leave our listener with?
Take the pulse of your organization. Where are they with talent development? Is it a strategic initiative? Is it tied to professional development? Is it tied to succession planning? Is it tied to helping you to grow and moving you along in your desires as career planning as part of your performance appraisal? Where are they? And are they doing what they say they are doing? So
I agree.
We can look on the intranet and we might see this mission or whatever it is that this organization may say that they do. But as an employee of the organization, is that what you're feeling? Is that what you're seeing? Are they making that investment?
That's right. I've read several studies that have been done post-COVID that show that for the first time, compensation is not the number one concern about employees. It's flexibility.
Yes.
And so a lot of companies are happy to try to talk about flexibility now where they were not before.
That's what I'm saying about that pre-COVID. If that was not the case, things were not even acceptable to make that, an option. I remember years ago, I was used to working from home, working in sales and marketing. You don't need to be in an office. So the companies that I came from, you had everything at your home office. They didn't want to see you sitting in the office. You needed to be out with the customer, right? That's the only way you could survive.
Sitting here, we are not making money.
And when I decided that, like our listener, to leave, and I interviewed and I asked to work from home at that time 2 to 3 days a week as part of negotiating, right? I really was proud of my negotiation skills. And the gentleman said, "You are quite precedent setting." Like he was mad at me. You're doing. And now we see that this is what we're doing, and it's acceptable, and it is a negotiating tool.
And the business survives and thrives as a result. Because we always talked about the tie to culture and the tie to having a positive work environment, and companies sort of thought, but they are now seeing that tie and really doubling down on it. And I've also seen a trend where when employees announce that they are leaving, companies sit them down and say, what will it take for us to keep you?
Mm-hmm. We have a question from one of the listeners. It says, I want to call your attention to organizational maturity. What are the factors that may influence the organizational maturity, and how can it influence employee engagement?
Mm-hmm. I would say there are multiple training programs that are available online that organizations allow their employees to use. And as they complete each module, there are rewards of some sort for certification at the end. I would say tuition reimbursement. So those are the kinds of things that you want to look for as well with companies in what they offer as they think about the professional development for you.
Lonnie, can you read the question again?
Sure.
Organizational maturity.
It says, I want to call your attention to organizational maturity. Mm-hmm. What are the factors that may influence organizational maturity, and how can it influence employee engagement?
Mm-hmm. I have found that diverse cultures have an organizational maturity that companies that don't have that diversity do, because you're bringing people in different backgrounds, different ages, different experiences, helping problem solve. And when you have voices from everyone, it really helps accelerate your path. You don't have to ideate something that's done not in an inclusive environment, have it fail, and then have to go back to the drawing board. You have a higher capacity for getting it right the first time. So that's one of the foundations I've seen with organizational maturity. I also think having a culture that has a mission and values is key. So I would say to any young person, if you are interviewing for a job, you need to go to their website, see what they stand for. Because if they're a culture that hasn't articulated clear values beyond, let's go make a whole bunch of money and split it up amongst us, that should sound an alarm for you, because that culture may not stand for anything, or you may not fit into that culture. So cultures that really focus on mission and values and try to live it are ones that I feel bring the right organizational maturity that helps create an engaging environment for employees.
And those that are open to innovation, companies that welcome ideas, that support you when you have a thought about how to change a process, improve the process. That's going to affect anyone else outside the organization, as well as all of us internally. So innovation is part of that diversity, right? Because that's what comes to the table.
It goes hand in hand. It's hard to have an innovative company for a sustainable amount of time if you don't. Absolutely. Studies have shown that over and over and over again. So that's what I would look for when I look for organizational maturity. So anything else as we are winding down that we want to share with our listener who has asked us for help? I think we've given a number of go-dos, but if you were going to give one action item, what do you think it would be?
Oh, that's easy. Trust yourself.
Trust yourself.
You are in control. You got people who are supporting, who are willing to help if you stumble. But what you feel is valid. How you feel about how you engage with others is valid. And it is okay to move forward and then decide I want to take a step back, or move to the right, or move to the left. Give yourself some grace.
I agree.
I would
just agree.
I would say that really to tag on to what you said, Lonnie, and thinking about what you said earlier, Deborah, resilience. No matter how you make your decision to stay or not to stay, it doesn't matter about the outcome, whether it's what you thought it would be and it wasn't. There's no need to be disappointed. That's all a part of growing as we mature and process throughout our careers. So it's okay. That's all a part of resilience. It's not the end of the world. And it doesn't even mean that you've made a mistake. Just because things don't always work out doesn't mean that you made the wrong decision. It's really preparing you for that next step, that next part of your career. So don't even be afraid to do that.
I agree. And since you all stole all the good stuff, the one I will add in.
You gave us so many great quotes already, right? So,
I would say act. And I'm not talking about it in the Nike just do it way. You want to think about it, but you don't want to ruminate too long, because you can get in your own head and spin around with thinking about all the options and scenarios. But studies have shown that action increases your confidence. And I know when I talk about confidence, a lot of men, I'm confident, I got this. I'm not talking about bravado. I'm not talking about hubris. I am talking about pure confidence in your approach, in what you're going to do, even if it's a micro step. So what they have seen in confidence surveys is if you act, you take that first step, smallest thing, it builds confidence. So the more you act, the greater your confidence grows. So that's what you really have to do. You have to think about it and plan, but at some point you have to start doing something and testing it out and trying it out. And as Lonnie said, you can course correct, pivot, step to the side, to the back. It feels like a line dance, to the left, to the left, to the right, to the right. And you learn resilience because you step to the right and the other person next to you step to the left and you bump into them and you're like, oh, I'm sorry. And you keep on going. Right? So that's what you have to do. Just act. So I think, yes.
You think it's time for our cheer?
I think it's time for our cheer.
So how about this? Let's toast to the line dance.
All right, to the line dance, the Living Corporate
line
the
dance.
Access Point Thursday.
So as you consider your pivots and you navigate with resilience and authenticity and build confidence, know that
you might bump into others a little bit, but it's all good.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah,
it's all right.
You'll get your rhythm, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope to see you back next week, and bring a friend. Remember, if you had a workplace story, you can share it with us. You can connect with Living Corporate on the web with livingcorporate.tv, on Twitter with livingcorp_prod, on LinkedIn at Living Corporate, or Instagram at Living Corporate. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.